If aliens came to Earth and brought their own gaming gear, they'd probably look something like this. Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to another video. A company called Gravastar reached out to me recently and offered to send over a few items from their Mercury line of products. The Mercury K1 Pro, a 75% mechanical keyboard, and the Mercury X Pro, a lightweight gaming mouse, both in the Galaxy Black color. Note that in no way is this a sponsored video, and there are no expectations about what I would say about these products. Let's get into it. Included with the K1 Pro is a cleaning brush, a keycap and switch puller, a cleaning cloth, a USB-C to USB-A cable, which I do wish was at least braided, and the manual. You also get 4 extra sample switches. Included with the X Pro is a braided USB-C to USB-A cable and the mouse's transceiver. More on both of these items later. Last, of course, you get the manual. We really can't start talking about anything else without first talking about the outer design of these products. For whatever reason, the first thing I thought of when I saw the keyboard specifically was that scene in Independence Day when the alien comes out of the spaceship after crash landing and Will Smith punches it in the face with a nice "Welcome to Earth." That, and literally any scene from Starship Troopers. In fact, I have a hard time describing the K1's design properly. The keyboard has a curvy design that exposes lighting around its front 3 edges from behind its aluminum alloy skeletal frame. And of course, the most noticeable thing are its claws that stick out from the top corners, giving it its signature alien/bug-like appearance. The claws themselves are not just for looks. They functionally act as the tilt stands. Fully extending them lowers the keyboard to a flat position, and pulling them inwards tilts the keyboard upwards, so it's a really unique design in that sense. At the top right is a dedicated volume knob, which I appreciate. The keycap design is pretty cool and went all out with some cool creative expressions. The keyboard sits a bit high in my opinion, so I'd recommend using an appropriately sized wrist rest. Overall, the build quality is sturdy and feels durable. As for the X Pro, it follows in Gravastar's signature design. There's an inner LED light encased in a skeletal magnesium alloy shell. What's perhaps more noticeable than its design is just how light it is. Just 50 grams, which makes it the lightest mouse I've ever used by far. Note that the buttons are made of plastic and doesn't follow in the magnesium alloy theme. There are 2 customizable buttons on the left side, though they're thick enough to cause annoying issues with accidentally clicking them, at least with my fat thumbs, as there isn't a lot of clearance to put your thumb compared to other mice. For example, compared to my Basilisk Ultimate, you'll immediately notice how thin the 2 buttons are and how much more space you have to put your thumb versus the X Pro. The overall build quality is decent, but I imagine to some people this can feel like a cheap mouse, even with its magnesium shell and low flex. It's hard to explain and something you would need to experience for yourself. The K1 Pro has some of the brightest backlighting I've ever seen and is on par with the $500 AM65 list from Angry Meow that I reviewed a while ago. As mentioned, the lighting extends to the left, front, and right edges, as well as the tilt claws. Among other key combinations, you can change the backlight color by pressing Function and Tab, and change the lighting around the edges by pressing Function and the / button. You can also control the lighting speed where applicable, and increase and decrease the lighting brightness. There are 13 different lighting effects you can choose from by pressing Function and the pipe button. The K1 Pro has the standard fare connectivity options. Bluetooth, where it can connect to up to 3 devices, a 2.4 GHz mode, and wired, though the wired mode symbol is effectively the power symbol, which optically can be a bit confusing. The X Pro follows suit with the same connectivity options. The mouse can go up to a max polling rate of 8000 Hz, though you'll need to download the software in order to make this happen. I'll talk more about the software in a bit, but for me, the standard 1000 Hz works just fine, as I'm not doing any real competitive gaming. One thing that's annoying with the mouse is that you're forced to use the included transceiver, as there is no dongle for the mouse. Compared to say the Razer Basilisk V3 Pro and the Mouse Dock Pro, where using the built-in transceiver is only necessary to unlock the 8000 Hz polling rate. This means that you're forced to use the transceiver and its cable connection on your desk, which can get a bit annoying with cable management. For a mouse this expensive, I definitely expected to see its own wireless dongle at a minimum. The K1 Pro comes with pudding PBT keycaps, which are a type of double-shot PBT keycap. Underneath the keycaps you'll find Speedy Mint switches, a switch Gravastar created in collaboration with Kyle? Is that how you pronounce it? These are linear switches with an actuation force of 45 grams and a 3.5mm total travel distance. For typing, I prefer tactile switches, but these feel good to type on. The switches are hot swappable with south-facing LEDs in contrast to the often disliked north-facing LEDs, which creates incompatibility issues with certain switches or keycaps. I wanted to take a closer look at the keyboard's internals, so I did. There are 8 total screws at the bottom, with 2 hidden behind the rubber feet in the bottom corners. Once opened, the 2 4000 mAh batteries can be disconnected from the PCB. So yeah, as advertised, the K1 Pro has a total of 8000 mAh of battery capacity, which Gravastar advertises up to 470 hours of battery life, though I assume that's with the lighting turned completely off. To get access to the rest of the keyboard's internals, you need to disconnect the daughter board from the PCB, the 2 cables connected to the cloth that provides their lighting, and last, you need to remove all the screws from the plastic mounts covering the silicon gaskets. The inner housing of the top frame has some light diffusers where the ambient light shine, and also has the transparent Gravastar logo where the light shines through. There are several layers to the K1 Pro. Starting from the top, there is the positioning plate made out of FR4, which is stuck together to a pour-on sandwich foam. Specifically, FR4 is a composite material that's known to be structurally stable. Underneath that is an IXP foam for sound insulation, which sits on top of the PCB itself. Then we have a layer of pour-on button foam to absorb typing vibrations, and finally a layer of silicone foam for more sound insulation. What all this gets you is a great sounding keyboard that honestly has some of the best stock thock sound I've heard. Just before we get to the fun part with gaming, I need to quickly touch on the software that Gravastar provides with the keyboard. Now, as a software engineer in the web space that has been in the industry for close to 15 years, I have certain standards when it comes to general software user experience. First, the software download buttons don't directly download the files from their official servers for whatever reason. It takes you to Google Drive in order to download it. To make things more annoying, on Windows, Defender even flags the software as potentially harmful. Now, stuff like this can happen because either Windows doesn't recognize the publisher, the file lacks a digital signature, or the software is downloaded from an unconventional source, in this case like Google Drive, among other reasons, even if it isn't malicious. Second, the K1 Pro and X Pro mouse each have their own dedicated software for some reason. It's not all combined cohesively like in Logitech's G Hub or Razer's Synapse, which is a pain in the ass as you need to install 2 different pieces of software to control the mouse and keyboard. Third, using the keyboard software is also somewhat unintuitive. You can customize keys and macros, and of course, pick a new lighting mode or customize individual key colors. The annoying thing with customizing keys and updating lighting effects though, is that the changes aren't instantly previewed. Instead, you have to repeatedly click the save button to see what you're adjusting, which again, is just annoying. You can upgrade the firmware on the keyboard, though the process is a bit convoluted, requiring you to plug and unplug the device cable at different intervals. The mouse software is simpler, but not great either. You can change the lighting effects and customize macros, etc. The usual fare I'd expect here. Interestingly, the default lighting mode actually turns off the RGB lighting whenever the mouse moves, which feels counterintuitive to me, but thankfully you can disable this behavior in the software settings. As mentioned, you'll need to install the mouse software in order to unlock the 8000 Hz polling rate, which I honestly don't think anyone really needs unless you're a professional esports player or do highly competitive gaming. If for whatever reason you're using this on macOS, the desktop software isn't available for Apple users, so you'll need to use the web software to do this. Everything here just feels non-user friendly. My firm opinion on accompanying software is that if you're not going to put as much effort into it as you do with the product itself, then don't include it, as it ruins the overall customer experience, especially if you're forced to use it to use certain features. I'd much rather have a seamless plug-and-play experience than forced to download subpar software in order to fully use a product. Just because software works doesn't mean the software is pleasant to use for the end user. These products aren't cheap, and the end user deserves better for their hard-earned money. With that out of the way, let's move on to something more fun: gaming. I tested this keyboard out with a variety of games, whether it was Quake 2 Remastered, Doom Eternal, CS2, Amnesia: The Dark Descent, BioShock Remastered, Jedi: The Fallen Order, or even the original Max Payne, both the K1 Pro and X Pro were fast and responsive. The speedy mint switches felt great, and the extremely lightweight X Pro was fun to use. I also tested out the keyboard with my general productivity tasks, including general programming, editing, and writing the script for this video. As mentioned, I do prefer tactile switches for non-gaming related tasks, especially writing code, but the speedy mint switches felt fine. Obviously, the X Pro is meant for gaming, and I would never, for example, switch from my MX Master to the X Pro for something like video editing. So, overall impressions. Let's talk price to get some context here. As of the making of this video, the K1 Pro in the Galaxy Black color retails for 231 Canadian dollars or 162 US dollars, so this is in no way a cheap keyboard. The X Pro in the Galaxy Black color retails for 178 Canadian dollars or 125 US dollars, so if you pick this up as a set, you're looking at around 409 Canadian dollars or 287 US dollars. First, let's talk about the K1 Pro. This is one of those cases where the physical design is so unique that this ultimately might be the biggest deciding factor on whether or not you'd want to purchase this. I don't think there's a lot of in between here. You'll either love or hate the design. To me, the tilting claw design is really cool and shows a lot of creativity. Second, if you like RGB, the K1 Pro has some of the brightest backlighting I've ever seen on a keyboard, with several different color options to choose from. The built-in volume control knob is nice, but I do wish there were some dedicated next and previous track controls. Third, the thockiness here sounds great and, to me, has some of the best mechanical sounds on a stock keyboard, which isn't a surprise given the attention to detail within the keyboard's internal layers. The silicon gasket design makes the typing experience great and gives just enough flex. The X Pro is super light though. As mentioned, the two side buttons are a little big in my opinion, which makes them easy to accidentally press. The lack of a dongle and mandatory use of the transceiver is also a bit annoying, but all things considered, I do think the design is cool, and for gaming, the mouse is especially fun to use. The software is the true weak point here, and needs to be improved to better the user experience, especially when you consider how expensive these products are. Are they worth the money? Let's start with the K1 Pro. If you love the design and can get past the annoying software, then I think the stock sound, build quality, and overall typing experience, especially for gaming, is worth what you're paying for. For the X Pro, I'm 50-50 on it because I think this is geared towards more specific types of people. If the only thing you're doing is gaming and are especially into first-person shooters, then the lightweight profile of the X Pro might be worth it to you, as this is one of the lightest mice available on the market. However, if you primarily use your computer for work or play more casual games, then obviously there are several better options, and the $178 price tag isn't worth it. At least, I wouldn't pay that sort of price for it. Overall, Gravastar has undeniably created some of the most unique looking peripherals on the market, and if you're a gamer looking to level up the look of your setup and are willing to put up with some of the aforementioned shortcomings, you really can't go wrong with the Mercury line of products. That's about all I have for this one, guys. If you're still here and are interested in picking up either the K1 Pro or X Pro, you can go ahead and use the coupon code 2BYTE at checkout to save 10% off, which does earn me a small commission, so thank you in advance for your support of this channel. I'll also have a few affiliate links for these products in the description below. Also, if you're still here, please drop me a Starship Troopers down below, just so I can give you a like for sticking around until the end of the video. If you like this video, please remember to hit that like button, and please consider subscribing and hitting that bell icon so you know when I release new videos. Doing all of those things really helps me out in growing this small channel. I've got more tech, desk setup, and gaming content planned as usual, so please stay tuned for that. As always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. See ya.